For more than 20 years, Matt Lauer was a familiar face to millions of Americans who tuned in to the Today Show. He was seen as a trusted figure who could talk to anyone from US presidents to world-famous celebrities and make viewers feel comfortable with his warm, professional style. People welcomed him into their homes every morning, and it felt like he was a part of their daily lives. Lauer wasn't just another television host. He became a symbol of American morning television. By the late 1990s, his name was everywhere, and NBC treated him like their most valuable star. His natural ability to connect with both guests and audiences made him stand out from others in the competitive world of TV journalism. His reputation grew quickly, and so did his paycheck. At his peak, he was reportedly earning around $25 million a year, making him one of the highest-paid people in television. Alongside his rising career, he lived in luxury, buying large homes in the Hamptons and enjoying an extravagant lifestyle. For many, it seemed like he had it all: success, wealth, fame, and security in his career. But behind this polished image, things were not as perfect as they looked. Whispers started to circulate among NBC staff about behavior that didn't match the friendly image viewers saw on screen. Colleagues would sometimes exchange uncomfortable stories, but nothing was ever made public. For a long time, it seemed as if Matt Lauer was untouchable. His value to NBC was so high that no one dared to openly question his behavior. Yet, as history would prove, an empire built on silence and denial cannot last forever. Paragraph 1. The Rise of a Morning Star, 330 words, for more than 2 decades. Matt Lauer was one of the most trusted and familiar faces on American television. As the co-host of NBC's Today Show, he became part of millions of households every single morning. People woke up, made their coffee, and turned on the TV to see Matt delivering news, interviewing presidents, and laughing with celebrities. He had a way of speaking that felt personal, as if he was talking directly to you, and this helped him build a powerful bond with his audience. Unlike many other television hosts, Lauer combined professionalism with charm, and his interviews were often the highlights of the morning. By the late 1990s, he was already a household name, and his career was climbing rapidly. NBC saw how valuable he was to their brand, and rewarded him with contracts worth millions of dollars. At the peak of his career, he reportedly made around $25 million a year, putting him among the highest-paid TV personalities in the country. His fame brought him not only money, but also a lifestyle full of luxury, including beautiful homes in the Hamptons, and a secure place among New York's elite. To viewers, Lauer looked like a man who had achieved everything: a dream career, financial success, and the respect of an entire industry. But behind this perfect picture, another side of his life was unfolding. Inside NBC, there were quiet discussions and hushed warnings about his behavior toward colleagues. Many of these stories never reached the public for years, but within the company, some employees had already begun to feel uncomfortable. Still, with all the money and ratings Lauer brought to NBC, nobody dared to challenge him. For a long time, he seemed completely untouchable. A man too important to ever face consequences. As Matt Lauer's fame grew, so did his influence at NBC. He was not just a host, he was the star of the Today Show. Executives saw him as the face of the network, and advertisers loved him because he brought in huge ratings. This level of power gave him a sense of security that few others in the industry enjoyed. However, the bigger his influence became, the more uncomfortable stories began to surface from behind the scenes. Female colleagues whispered about awkward moments, inappropriate jokes, and behavior that crossed professional lines. In the early 2000s, these whispers stayed in private conversations. People were scared to speak up because of the risks involved. Lauer had the ability to make or break careers, and everyone knew NBC would protect him because he generated so much money. Some employees described the work environment as one where inappropriate behavior was ignored because the company did not want to lose its star. Looking back, many say the warning signs were always there, even in his on-air interviews. For example, in 2012, he interviewed actress Anne Hathaway and made comments about paparazzi photos that had invaded her privacy. Instead of treating it seriously, he joked about it, making her visibly uncomfortable. Similarly, in another interview with Sandra Bullock, he repeatedly brought up her nude scenes in a movie, turning what should have been a professional conversation into something more personal and inappropriate. These interviews may have seemed like small moments to viewers at the time, but in hindsight, they revealed something troubling about his attitude toward women. Despite these red flags, NBC continued to protect him because he was too valuable. The company was making millions in advertising thanks to him, and The Today Show was at the top of the ratings. This culture of silence and protection allowed Lauer's behavior to continue unchecked for years. It was a dangerous combination, one man with enormous power and a company unwilling to confront the problems that surrounded him. The real issue was not just Lauer's behavior, but also the system that allowed it to go on for so long. NBC executives had every reason to protect their star. The Today Show was a money-making machine, and as long as Lauer was at the center of it, the profits kept rolling in. Reports later suggested that the network may have known about complaints and even settlements involving Lauer years before his eventual firing. Instead of taking strong action, the company allegedly used non-disclosure agreements to keep these problems out of the public eye. Employees who spoke up often felt ignored or even punished for raising concerns. One of the most well-known examples was Ann Curry, who co-hosted The Today Show alongside Lauer. She later described her time there as a period of professional torture. According to her, some female employees came to her for help regarding Lauer's behavior, but when she tried to escalate the issue, the company sided with Lauer instead. Curry herself was eventually pushed out of the show, while Lauer kept his job and his massive salary. This sent a clear message to others at NBC. Challenging Lauer was not tolerated. The network's loyalty to him was stronger than its responsibility to protect employees. This environment created a culture of fear, where people who felt uncomfortable had no safe space to speak. Meanwhile, Lauer continued to enjoy the perks of being NBC's star. He earned millions, lived like royalty, and carried himself as if the rules simply did not apply to him. Unfortunately, this is how power works when accountability is missing. When a company protects a powerful figure instead of protecting its people, the situation only gets worse. And for Matt Lauer, it was only a matter of time before this carefully protected image came crashing down. The collapse of Matt Lauer's career came suddenly, but in reality, it had been building for years. In late 2017, as the #MeToo movement was gaining strength across the world, women were finding the courage to speak out against powerful men. The entertainment industry was at the center of this cultural shift, and for the first time, men who seemed untouchable were being held accountable. In November 2017, NBC executives received a detailed complaint from a female employee about an incident that took place during the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi, Russia. According to the complaint, she had been drinking heavily when Lauer invited her to his hotel room, where the situation turned into a non-consensual encounter. This allegation was so serious and detailed that NBC could no longer protect their star in the way they had before. Within just hours of receiving the complaint, NBC made the decision to fire him. The speed of the decision was shocking. Even to his co-hosts, Savannah Guthrie and Hoda Kotb, had to announce the news live on The Today Show, only hours after learning it themselves. Their emotional delivery made it clear just how devastating this was, not only for the viewers, but also for the people who had worked with Lauer for decades. For millions of Americans, it was almost unbelievable. The man they had trusted every morning for over 20 years was suddenly gone, accused of serious misconduct. And as soon as the first complaint became public, more women came forward with their own stories. Some described incidents from as far back as 2001, including allegations of inappropriate gifts, unwanted advances, and even retaliation when they refused him. What had once been whispered rumors now became undeniable evidence of a pattern. Carefully built empire crumbled overnight, and his fall became one of the most dramatic moments in the history of American television. The news of Lauer's firing spread quickly, making headlines across the world. Viewers who had once trusted him were left shocked and angry. To many people, it felt like a personal betrayal. This wasn't just another celebrity, it was a man they had invited into their homes every morning, someone they thought they knew. The reaction was immediate and unforgiving. No other networks were willing to hire him, and no production companies wanted to be connected to his name. In an industry where even disgraced figures sometimes manage a comeback, Lauer found no opportunities. His reputation was too badly damaged. NBC, which had once defended him, cut all ties instantly. His massive $25 million salary ended immediately, and there were no secret deals or payouts. Financially, Lauer was still wealthy from his years of high earnings, but the days of being a media king were over. More painful than the financial hit was the personal cost. Friends who once called him regularly stopped reaching out. Invitations to social events disappeared. He went from being one of the most powerful men in television to someone almost nobody wanted to be around. Reports suggested that even those who stayed in touch only did so if they agreed with his version of events. Since he struggled to accept responsibility for his actions, his marriage to Annette Rowe finally collapsed, leading to divorce. According to insiders, their relationship had already been in trouble for years. But the scandal made it impossible to continue. For his family, the revelations were devastating, and the divorce exposed just how much damage his behavior had caused at home as well as at work. The man who once seemed to have it all now lived in isolation, his career and reputation completely destroyed. After his firing, Matt Lauer largely disappeared from the public eye. Unlike other celebrities who try to rebuild their image with memoirs, interviews, or new media projects, Lauer remained almost entirely silent. He reportedly spent most of his time at his Hamptons estate, far away from the spotlight where he once thrived. The isolation was a dramatic change for someone who had built his entire life around being seen and heard. Sources described him as reclusive, meeting only with people who were supportive of him and avoiding any situation where he might be confronted with his past. In 2019, he tried to push back against some of the allegations by publishing an opinion piece. Instead of helping his image, the piece backfired badly. It was seen as self-serving and lacking real accountability, which only reinforced public opinion that he had not truly faced up to his actions. While Lauer did begin a new relationship with marketing executive Shaman Abbas, this did little to change the fact that he was no longer welcome in the circles he once dominated. Financially, he remained comfortable, but his lifestyle was not what it used to be. The man who once walked red carpets and attended glamorous events was now absent from the media world entirely. In today's culture, some celebrities manage to reinvent themselves after scandals, but Lauer has not done so. Whether by choice or necessity, his retreat has been almost complete. His story is one of vanishing from public life, a rare outcome. In a time when many public figures attempt comebacks through podcasts, social media, or book deals. Instead, Matt Lauer has become a symbol of someone whose career ended so completely that no return seems possible. Matt Lauer's fall was not just about one man, it became a symbol of something much bigger. His story showed how powerful men in media and entertainment had been protected for years while their victims were silenced. NBC's role in his career raised serious questions about how much the company knew and when they knew it. Reports suggested that complaints had been ignored or quietly settled, which pointed to a culture where money and ratings were more important than employee safety. When the #MeToo movement gained momentum, this culture could no longer survive. Companies realized that protecting stars at the expense of victims would lead to enormous backlash. Lauer's firing happened at a time when people were demanding real accountability, and NBC had no choice but to act quickly. The way they handled his dismissal became an example for other companies. Silence and cover-ups were no longer acceptable. The scandal also forced networks across the industry to look at their own workplaces. Stronger policies were introduced, reporting systems were updated, and the casual sexism that had been tolerated in many environments was no longer seen as normal. For victims of harassment and misconduct, Lauer's firing was proof that speaking up could finally bring results. One woman's complaint managed